Since Baldur's Gate 3 released in 2023, Astarion has become an incredibly popular character in the D&D community. To capitalize on this, D&D has released a book. So D&D Beyond released Astarion's Book of Hungers to purchase digitally for about $15 US. The foreword says that this is all information that Astarion gave to a vampire hunter he fell in love with in a tavern. So I want to go over a few things with this book. I'm not going to dive deep into any of it because I don't want to, talk about something that they want you to pay for. But the first thing I wanted to talk about is there are 3 new character backgrounds. A character that loves to party, a character who is devoted to a vampire, and a character that survived a vampire attack. Each of these backgrounds include new feats, proficiencies, equipment specific to that background. The book also brings the Dhampir back into D&D. So these are people that possess some of the power of a vampire and their insatiable hunger. The species is solid. You're slightly faster than most races. You have spider climb and dark vision, which can both be useful. You have a bite attack that can deal a small amount of damage, while also either healing you or improving a later roll. I do think it would be cool to have a mechanic with hunger. I love that it can empower the character, but I feel like there's not really any drawbacks. Even D&D Beyond says that the Dhampir have the insatiable hunger of a vampire, but there's no negatives to not, feasting on something. So I think it would be good to have a mechanic where maybe if you don't drink any blood for a day, you have to make a wisdom saving throw or a constitution saving throw to not attack a nearby ally or maybe a nearby animal or something. I think that would be nice. I understand that could be a little bit more work on the DM, but I think it would make the flavor a lot better for the Dhampir. I'm sorry if the audio sounds bad at all because my cat keeps rubbing against the microphone. There are a decent number of feats included in this book. I really like the Vampire Hunter feat that allows the player to reduce necrotic damage. There are also some great general feats. Overall, I don't think any of the general feats are bad. Some of them are a little better than others. The epic boon feats are all pretty cool. One gives you immunity to radiant damage, while also allowing you to emit light from yourself. Another allows you to increase melee weapon damage attacks by 10 feet for a turn, which is a lot. Most melee attacks are 5-foot range. Increasing by 10 feet brings you to 15 feet range, which is insane. That is a lot compared to pretty much any weapon. Another makes you more similar to the 5e vampire by allowing you to use Misty Escape if you hit 0 HP. So Misty Escape allows you to turn into a cloud of mist with a slow movement speed. I think it's 10-15 feet per second, or per round, not second. And low HP. So ideally, this would allow you to get away from combat. The book also gives a few new monster stat blocks, including one for Cazador, Astarion's maker, called the Vampire Infernalist. So we'll get to that one in a second. I want to go over these other ones first. There's a stat block called the Fiendish Icon that looks like a fiendish statue, kind of like a gargoyle. The book gives 6 options for how this icon can look. This is a CR1 monster, so it's not very strong, but it could be very deadly for low-level parties or if there's a large group of fiendish icons, because it has an ability that allows it to explode. And that can be very damaging to even entire groups of players, depending on how clustered everybody is. Harvester devils are included in this book, and they gather souls for the 9 hells. This is like the stereotypical devil that makes deals for different souls. They resemble tieflings, and they promise wealth and influence to mortals. The book outlines possible loopholes you could put into their contracts, so ways for the players to get out of a contract, or for NPCs to get out of a contract. They are only CR3, but they are resurrected in the 9 hells if you do kill them, similar to the next monster, which is the Speaker Devil. So Speaker Devils are tasked with learning secrets from others in order to convince them to perform nefarious acts. So they are the blackmail devils. That's the purpose, is to blackmail mortals. At CR 12, these guys hit hard compared to the other monsters we've talked about so far. They have a halberd attack that also deals additional thunder damage, similar to like a smite. They have a few spells they can cast and a pretty solid bonus action, or some pretty solid bonus actions. This is an impressive stat block. I really like the Speaker Devil, and I'm probably going to use some of the material from the Speaker Devil for later monsters maybe. I like to reskin monsters. I might use the Speaker Devil eventually because I do really like that they blackmail players. I think that's really fun. Then we get to the Vampire Infernalist, which, like I said, this is what Cazador is in Baldur's Gate 3. So they are stronger when they're in their layers, getting more legendary resistances and the ability to control animals nearby. I love empowering something in its layer. I think it's something that D&D doesn't do often enough, so I really enjoy this. The attacks do solid damage. They can shapeshift into an imp or a cloud of mist. Like I said, the cloud of mist is mostly for Misty Escape, but I think they can just do it at will. The legendary actions include one that gives the frightened condition and one that has the ability to teleport 30 feet, which the frightened condition is always a solid legendary action because a lot of monsters in D&D, giving the frightened condition is a full action. This allows the Vampire Infernalist to still make its attacks on its turn or cast its spells on its turn while still giving the frightened condition on a legendary action. So I really enjoy that. And then the ability to teleport 30 feet as a legendary action is incredible because you could just toy with your players a bit. Maybe a player just ended its turn, like a wizard or something, and you use a legendary action to get beside them because the Vampire Infernalist is going to go next. And the wizard is the squishier character. So if you want to be one of those DMs that capitalizes on the weaker characters, teleporting 30 feet as a legendary action is incredible. Lastly, there's a stat block for what is called the Vampire Warden. So these are more durable vampires that guard the layers and the treasures of other vampires. So a Vampire Warden might guard the treasure room for a Vampire Infernalist. They can reduce some damage taken, and they are turned to stone if they're reduced to 0 HP, which allows them to heal and come back later. So this is a tankier vampire. They have good damage reduction, a good AC, decent number of hit points. I don't know if I like the turning to stone thing. I understand it's a different flavor. Every other vampire turns to mist to make a misty escape so that they can come back in the coffin. The Vampire Warden turns into like a stone statue to allow themselves time to heal. The problem I have with it is that that stone statue can't move, so you could still die. So I don't know how I feel about that. But I do like the flavor of the Vampire Warden, where it's like a strong vampire that is specifically there to guard the treasure of another vampire. They're even mentioned in one of the adventures as a vampire that Astarion is annoyed with because they just are guard dogs. There are a few adventures in this book that take place in Rat's Run. This is a tavern that Astarion frequents in Baldur's Gate. The players should be associates of Astarion, or they should be nefarious in the city for some reason. So maybe they are thieves or mercenaries that people are kind of frightened of, or at least they're well known in the seedier parts of Baldur's Gate. Aside from the other quest, this book also gives 4 plot hooks that the DM can use to create an adventure using this book. So these are just different scenarios that you could use for like a one-shot. So maybe it's that the owner of the bar has started to realize that a lot of their patrons are disappearing with Astarion and never coming back, and stuff like that. I don't want to go too deep into the adventures outlined because, like I said, if you want to run these adventures, I think you should just buy the book. It's a $15 digital book. It's not too expensive compared to some of the other things that D&D has released. But I do want to talk about like the layout and stuff. So the 2 adventures give you potential encounters that can occur. So there is an overall thing that you have to do, and then there's potential encounters that could occur while you're doing that thing. So this allows you a little bit of flexibility. If your session's going too long, you can take out an encounter If you think that the players are getting hit too hard, you can take out some monsters, stuff like that. They allow you to have Astarion fight alongside the party, but that can be tough to balance, so I would caution against that. One of the quests is to protect Astarion because another vampire is trying to get him killed. So they've hired like some demons and stuff. So a smart enemy would just focus on Astarion, not necessarily the rest of the party, and that could cause a lot of issues for that quest. Because if you have like 3 fiends that you're fighting, Astarion might die. Astarion is just a vampire spawn stat block in this module, so like he's not incredibly strong, you know? They both take place inside of Rats 1, like I said earlier. There is a map at the end of the chapter that shows the layout of Rats 1, which could be useful here. The tavern is full of secrets and treasure if the players seek that out. So there's like hidden rooms, hidden doors, stuff like that. D&D Beyond did give a level 3 and a level 12 adventure here. So the first adventure is level 3, second adventure is level 12. This is a wide spread, but it does cover the 2 opposite sides of an adventuring party. So early level adventuring and later level adventuring, or like mid tier because it's level 12. A lot of campaigns don't even go to 12th level, so I do think this is a nice way to get the players some experience with like some higher level play. My favorite thing about these adventures is they could pretty easily be slotted into a Baldur's Gate campaign. So maybe one of the players has met Astarion or has worked alongside him before. Maybe the party is a little notorious in the city and Astarion seeks them out for some help. Either way, you could have him as an NPC within the city. So if you use both adventures, you could use Astarion early in the campaign at level 3 and then late in the campaign at level 12. And then you could pepper stuff in between. Overall, this is a decent book. I'm happy to see the Dhampir return to the 2024 revised rules. There are some great feats, but I know I'm not going to use them, and that's more on me. I forget about feats a lot. It's not any fault to D&D. I just forget that there's a lot of different options. The monster stat blocks are good, although I did expect more vampire stat blocks. You get 3 stat blocks for different types of fiends, and then 2 stat blocks for vampires in a vampire book. I don't hate it. I love having some more options for fiends, but I feel like we have a lot of options for fiends in D&D and not as many options for vampires in D&D. I have personally been writing my own vampire stat blocks. If this is something you would be interested, just let me know and I can try to do a video about 1 or 2 of the stat blocks that I've been working on. D&D talks a lot about how there's vampires that feed on psychic energy and dreams and stuff like that, but they haven't really shown any examples of that, so I'm trying to make a couple of stat blocks. If they have shown examples and I'm just wrong, let me know, because I just can't think of any examples of like a psychic vampire in D&D. I don't regret buying this book because I think it was an interesting read and it gave me some ideas that I can use in later campaigns. Would I recommend buying it? That depends. If you are a fan of Astarion, need some more infernal stat blocks, want a couple of higher level vampire stat blocks, or just want some one-shots that would be fun to run, I would recommend buying it. If your players are just a fan of Baldur's Gate 3, it isn't a bad book to pick up. You could also just make Astarion if your players are a fan of Baldur's Gate 3. Like I said, he's a vampire spawn. It's not like he has his own specific stat block in this book. Otherwise, I would probably pass on the book. It is only $15, so if you have the money to spare, it's not bad to pick it up. But I don't think it's giving a lot of what I wanted with this book, which is more of that vampire feel. There are some great vampire-related feats. There are 2 vampire stat blocks, which I do think both of them are really good. But other than that, there's more infernal stuff here. And I mean, 2 solid adventures. The last thing I wanted to say in this video is I do hope this book doesn't lead to Wizards of the Coast writing a lot of books about characters from Baldur's Gate 3. I love the game, and it might be my favorite game I've ever played. But Hasbro didn't make the game. I don't love that Wizards of the Coast is just using characters created by Larian Studios to market D&D. And I understand. Wizards of the Coast owns the IP. Larian made the game. I think Wizards might have bought the characters from them. I heard that somewhere. Don't quote me on that. But it still just feels weird to me that something that they were barely involved in, they just let Larian license some IP, is now like the big thing in the 2024 revised rules. They're just using Baldur's Gate characters. Other than that, guys, I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, you can leave a like, you can subscribe, you can do all of that stuff if you want to. But I hope everybody is having an amazing day. And until next time, guys, peace.